Hello, and welcome back to Between the T's, the knowledge sharing program from Texas Bank and Trust. I'm your host, Karen Partee. Today, we wrap up our three-part series on financing for small business owners. In our previous segments, we took a deep dive into the common misconceptions of preparing a strong loan application and to also looking at the common pitfalls for small business owners. Well, today we're going to look at the future and what small business owners can do to prepare to pass along their business or retire themselves. James Sheridan has returned once again, our Senior Vice President, Commercial Lending Officer, who's been sharing his knowledge on helping small business owners finance, but then also prepare for the future. Sure. And so we want to look ahead this time and look at one of our final pitfalls, and that's not thinking about where the business is going to go when a small business owner wants to retire.
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that's very important as you grow the business and stabilize it, you do at some point as a business owner have to start thinking about the future.
Right.
Now, during the loan stabilization process, it's critically important for you to have internally sort of your succession plan or a very defined role for each person within that business.
Okay.
But at some point you realize typically what most owners do, they say, I'm either going to keep the business and pass it on to my children or family member, or I'm going to sell the business. From the standpoint of passing it on to a family member, then we want to see who that person is, what their qualifications are, if they've been involved in the business. It's not uncommon for someone to sort of bring someone on and then they work together for a few years before they just step out because they want to share their knowledge, which that's good for us because, forewarned is forearmed, so we all know what's coming and there won't be any pitfalls in the business itself when that management changes or ownership changes. What I typically see, though, that sometimes can be a pitfall is people realize, well, perhaps they don't have a family member who wants to take over the business and they want to sell the business. And so really to properly sell a business, it takes time to get it to that point.
Okay. If you were getting ready to sell your business, what happens if there is already an established loan for the business?
Well, what we would want to see is the new acquirer come in, and we would basically underwrite them just as if it were the existing business owner. Mm-hmm. We'd want to get their personal information as far as a financial statement, tax returns, et cetera, and then we would underwrite that. And then if they qualified under the same terms and conditions under the existing loan, we would probably redo the documentation, but that is a possibility. But we would definitely underwrite them just as though they were applying for a new loan.
And is that a question that you ask a potential borrower? Are you in the market to sell your business within the next few years? Is that something you address in the loan application process?
Well, I think even at the very inception of the loan, it is good to know what their short, medium, and long-term strategy is. Most of the time, folks that, especially a legacy business, will go ahead and volunteer and say, my intention is to pass this along to my children someday. Mm-hmm. And so that is something you cover. I think as a banker, as an advisor, a trusted advisor, as you see a business come to the maturity stage and you're cognizant of the fact that the owner may be getting up in years or whatever, what is your exit strategy? Do you want to just sell the business, take the money and retire, live off the investment? Do you want to pass it on? So I think as bankers, we need to be aware, and we usually are as we've known this business over a long-term period, of what their intentions are and have that discussion. But again, I think it's critical if it is going to be a sale that it just takes time to get that business to the prime spot to sell so they can maximize their return when they sell it.
Is the conversation different if it's a startup? You don't know anything about this business, and they do indicate that, yes, I'm just growing it to sell. How's the conversation different?
Typically, that's kind of the ninth inning of a ball game, and you're in the first inning, and so you definitely want to touch on that. But really, you want them focused on the here and the now, not the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you will. So you want them focused on how they're going to establish the business and grow the business, and then at the appropriate time, it's always sort of out there. But then when it comes to the forefront, you'll be ready to discuss that based on the current conditions.
Okay. Well, in our series, we've looked at misconceptions of the loan process. We looked at the established business and pitfalls that they might have, and now looking at the legacy. Tying this all together, what's the one thing that you feel like small business owners should do when they're talking about their business, expanding it, and financing comes into question? What's the one piece of advice that you would have them think about?
Sure. I think that overall in that, when you're looking at that spectrum, I think to surround yourself with wise counselors or trusted advisors, whether it be the banker on the financing side, the accountant on the tax and liability side, it can even be your insurance agent. I think relying on other people's strengths and bringing those together, there's a safety in a multitude of counselors.
Absolutely.
And so you may be very well versed in the actual product or service that you're selling, but if you realize there's a weakness as far as your accounting knowledge or banking knowledge or insurance knowledge, et cetera, I really think that with all the resources out there, you should take full advantage of those and realize I want to play on my strengths as far as the business, and whatever weaknesses I may have from that other portion, rely on those people around you. And so that's why it's critical, especially if you're a small business owner, really establish a good relationship with your banker early on, have really good open communication, so that you both kind of know what the plan is and where you're going. I think that's critical.
Excellent advice and great information for this series. Thank you so much, James. Again, we'd like to thank James Sheridan, Senior Vice President and Commercial Lender for Texas Bank and Trust, and a trusted advisor in our Tyler Grande location in Tyler, Texas. And if you've enjoyed this series, please like and share our videos. And if there is a topic that you would like us to turn into a series, please share those in the comments below. Thank you for joining us this three-part series on financing for small business owners. And as always, knowledge is power when it's shared between the T's. Thanks for watching. I'm Karen Partee.